it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, 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 down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shout it loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
See, there we go. So now, for all of you who said that we had issues with the mic, the question I'm asking you, can you hear me now? Bam, bam, bam. All right. All right. And I didn't get paid for Verizon for saying that, although they should pay me now. Anyway, welcome. Today is Deidre Day, Tuesday, July 14th. Woo, woo, woo. And we got the queen of the show in the house. And we got Vincent. We got a full house today. Hey, listen. Hey, Deidre and Diane, I think they should be paying us. Do you? No, I want to know if the audience really understands the immense value that exists right now on this show to provide you with news and information that literally can help you transform your life. And that is true. Like, I'm not just saying it to hype the show up. I mean, these are all accomplished people, business owners, Black American business owners. That's crazy. Please hit the share button. Welcome to the show. How'd I do? Was that it? Did I? Now you all can send me your money later.
Cash app you, right?
You can cash at me. That's right. See, I could be the hype man. But anyway, I'm excited. I look. I learn when I have you guys on the show. I learn stuff every time. You know, I get a different perspective on things, and it helps me improve how I do the stuff that I do. And the only thing that I could hope is that the listeners get the same experience, and that they share the show with people who they think this stuff might be helpful to. Anyway, how are you guys doing?
All right.
Doing well.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, sleepy.
Who's sleepy? Wait a minute.
I'm sleepy.
Diane, you off vacation or you back on? You still on vacation?
I'm home. I just got back this morning at 12:30. I'm exhausted.
Oh, shoot. You need a vacation from your vacation.
I do. I'm going to self-quarantine myself for 14 days so I can relax. I already put the word out. I ain't cooking one day this week. Not one day. Well, I may put some biscuits in the oven because I am kind of hungry. Other than that,
Well, wait, it said, may I put some biscuits in the oven? And maybe I'll fry some chicken too. And then, you know, maybe I'll make a steak later. But other than that, I'm not cooking anything.
anything.
Call Chicken Delight. No worries tonight.
But I had a good vacation. Everything was wonderful. All is good. It was, you know, easy traveling. My husband loves GPS, so you know GPS loves to take you different routes, which is very annoying to me. Instead of just going straight the way I want to go. Other than that,
You can't go straight down 95. No.
So let me ask you a question. How long was your drive back?
12 hours.
You did it straight?
It's 12 hours. Yeah, it's 12 hours straight. We stopped 1, 2, 3 times just to get gas. Maybe 15 minutes. Oh, and I stopped to get my Bojangles my last time on the way out the south. So I got that. But yeah, 12 hours. And there was a lot of road construction in the state, Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is funny because my husband I had just complained about the GPS taking us different routes. And he says, oh, I love technology. It gives you all of the traffic updates and alerts and blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, it didn't tell us about this. And we sat in traffic for an hour.
Whoa. What GPS do you use?
That's installed. It's the GPS that's installed.
No, you got to use Waze.
Navigation system.
No.
You gotta use Waze.
You got to use
Yeah, I was going to
Waze.
say the same thing. The one in the car doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, God, I know this. I know this, Deetra. You know I'm a woman. I know this. But I have to let it play out.
No. Wait a minute, Diane. I will not.
He gotta learn. He gotta learn.
I will not. Listen, I will not be a party to bashing him on this show. I will not do that. If he said the car GPS was the best,
My wife.
It was just like God sending a message down to me, thanking me for reading the book and keeping my mouth shut. All I could do was giggle and laugh. That's all I could do. Because I thought to myself, well, the road signs say it's construction and all of that, but your navigation didn't say that. That's what I was thinking, and I wanted to say, but because of the book, I said, keep your mouth shut. So I said nothing. And then we got to the New Jersey Turnpike, and they were shut down. It was closed. So we had to come up 95 through PA. I don't know what that was about because there was no signs and nothing saying that was going to be closed, but neither did the navigation. So, you know.
If I had to use Waze, it probably would have told you that.
Oh, Deidre, I know that.
He know that. But he gotta learn. See, he gotta learn. He gotta learn. He gonna learn. He gonna learn today.
What makes it more funny is I drive 95 every year. I can do it the back of my hand. I know all the stops everywhere down there. I said to him, would you use GPS if you was going to Atlanta? No. I said, oh, okay. So you drive Atlanta all the time. But I drive this way and you just, whatever. It's a man's thing. You know what y'all do when y'all get in there. Y'all control the radio, the temperature, everything.
You know
All
what?
we
I
do
don't.
is get the ride.
All I want to do is get there safely.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. And we did. So I was
Good.
just like, whatever. Let it
Good.
go. But we're back. Yeah.
Well, I thank God that you had a great trip and that you were back safely.
Thank you. I tried to stay a little bit longer. We did extend it a couple of days to yesterday. Then yesterday I was like, should we stay to the end of the week? He was like, look, it's time to go. I was like, okay, fine.
I know. He had to get you out there before you built an addition at your in-laws.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
The weather was nice. It was 93, 94 when we left. Humid, hot. It was great weather. So, and Eric, I came back. My freaking vegetable garden is like crops out there in the yard. They're like so big. I had to send
Isn't that
pictures,
great? Diane, I'm telling you, I relocated my tomato plant, right? I had it over in one area and it was getting sun, but one day I was out there and I said, wait a minute, it would get more sun if I moved it over there. I moved it 3 days later. That plant looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. No, it was like the plant from Little Shop of Horror, right? Seymour. It was like, feed me.
Yes. And Deidre, I thought about you when I looked at my vegetables and stuff. I said, you and your daughter should start gardening. She would love that.
Oh, gosh.
Just to watch it grow. And it's so easy. You don't do anything. Dirt,
That's
seeds,
a good idea.
water.
Hey, Deidre, I'm going to tell you,
Person,
at
but I
57,
might try that.
at 57, I'm fascinated. I mean, my aunt gardened all my life. You know, and I would go up and, you know, we would go up as kids. And then when I got older and I would watch my Aunt Ruth. And she had a massive garden upstate New York. But it's kind of like somebody who has kids, right? You watch their kids. But when you have your own kids, it's different. So, you know, I've got, you know, I'm gardening out of pots, right? So I've got a tomato plant. I've got my potatoes, Diane, are coming up through you know,
The sprouts are coming up.
the sprouts
Yeah.
are coming up, right? So I got,
Did you continue to put dirt on them?
Yeah.
Because you put dirt on it till you fill it to the top of the pot.
yep.
And then they'll just keep growing, and then when they're done, they'll turn brown, and that's when you know the potatoes are done, and you just knock it over and dump them out.
So I got
Plus,
potatoes
when you
growing.
put dirt on it, it increases the strength of the stalk,
Right.
so that
So
it
you-
won't fall over to.
Yeah.
Right. So every time you see the top of the sprouts, cover it again with dirt, with a couple of inches of dirt. And when it gets all the way to the top of the pot and you can't cover it anymore, you just let it go. And then it'll turn brown, and that's when they're ready underneath the dirt. At least that's what it says in the video. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping it to be true.
That's what I'm doing. But Deidre, for really, how old is your daughter, Deidre?
She's 10.
Yeah, it's just fascinating. Like when I first saw the tomatoes show up, and the crazy part is, like, I'm counting the number of tomatoes that I see, and then from yesterday to today, 2 more have emerged. Like they just show up, like, you know, and they're little, and then they grow bigger and bigger, and, you know, whatever. But I'm literally enamored with going outside and watching the zucchini and the onions and the potatoes and the tomatoes. And then I've got some mint, I've got some basil,
Yeah.
I've got oregano going. Oh my
Nice.
gosh. And I'm already
I got
thinking
oregano,
next year.
thyme, basil. But
I watched go ahead. I watched when I was down here on vacation. They had CNN International,
Uh-huh.
and it was called, the segment is African Voices, and they had on there a gentleman that talked about how he was teaching people in Africa to grow their own vegetables and using every single thing that they've had. So taking the excess of the cows and the goat stuff and refertilizing it, using it as the fertilization for the vegetables and all that. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, I'm ready to do that.
But you know what I what I love about gardening is that, I feel so healthy because of my fresh vegetables. I'm cooking fresh. We've been eating clean for about 3 years now, and those vegetables coming out of your garden are amazing for your body.
Yeah.
I mean, no additives, no preservatives, no nothing, just straight.
And again, it's easy. It literally is easy. So I'm looking forward to harvest, and then I'm looking forward to next year, because next year my garden is going to be probably 3 times the size it is now. All the things that I want to. I want to do red peppers and green peppers.
Oh, yeah.
I want to do some collards. I want to do some lettuce.
Got to get your zucchini in there too.
No, I got my zucchini. I got the yellow and the green zucchini growing now.
Oh yeah. And butternut squash soup is incredible.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. So we'll Diane and I will share pictures as the season goes on and into the fall and into our harvest.
I'm telling you, man, you go out and you look at that garden and you just go, won't he do it? Won't he do
it? Yeah. It is creation, isn't it? So, Deidre, what do we have on deck today? What are we going to talk about?
So today I kind of wanted to talk about, just piggybacking off of what we talked about last week with the interviews.
Uh-huh.
And last week we talked about, you guys love my questions for a behavior interview. You have your questions where those are challenging. So today I want to just kind of piggyback off of that and talk about a couple of things that companies are looking for when you're going in for an interview.
Right.
And then we can kind of pick and dissect them one by one and let me know what you guys think. So the top one is, to me, is sort of showing a level of confidence when you walk into the interview. You are showing that you are commanding the room. You are not, looking down. You're looking straight directly at the person that you're interviewing with. You're conveying confidence to them. When they say, "Tell me about yourself," you've got responses ready. We always talk about preparedness, right? And that's really important for anything. But here it's going to be important that you're going to lead with confidence and talk about things that you've helped create, things that you've achieved and you've led and you've implemented. So confidence is a biggie one. What do you guys think about that one?
Well, let me ask you a question. How do you display confidence without being arrogant, or cocky? Like, how do you? Because there's a line there, right? Where where you could cross over that line. And it quickly goes from you displaying confidence to you being arrogant and cocky.
I think it's just the way that you say things and the examples that you give. You are in an interview to shine. So, yes, it's sort of borderline, I want to fluff myself up. But you have to fluff yourself up because they need to be able to demonstrate, or you need to be able to explain and elaborate on why you think you're going to be the best person for this job.
Oh no, I agree with that.
So the fine line, so that probably lives into one of my other ones, is sort of talking about being a team player and not using all the I's and I's and I's and I did this and I did that and I did this. So you want to use things like we and us and together, and this is where I help support. So those are things where a company wants to see that you work with others. You're not just, it's all about me and what I've done. And obviously, if you're a one-man show, that's different. But, more than likely, you worked for a team or even supported a team or even managed a team. So you want to be able to show how we did things together. That would be kind of one of, that was one of the other tips, was sort of talking about being able to influence others and not just all about you. So
one of the big things for me, the difference between confidence and arrogance is confidence is, like you said, when you come in and you command the room. Your posture is excellent. You're making eye contact. Your story is precise. You're talking about building the team. But arrogance is when you just come in, lean back, and put your feet on his desk. And you express to him that, in 5 years, I'd like to have your position.
Yeah, I found that when I've interviewed folks, the arrogance is kind of what you were saying, Deidre, where it's all the I's and it's none of the we's, none of the us, and not only that, but in the interview, you can be flawed, right? You don't, nobody's perfect. And I think in cases where I've interviewed and the impression is perfection, I've kind of sensed that too as arrogance, right? Or every instance that I bring up, they've got a, oh yeah, I did that too. And oh yeah, I got that done. And oh yeah, I got that done. And then like there have been times where I shut down. I'm like, you know what? I bet you if I said to them, I built a house in 3 days, they'd say to me, I built it in a day and a half, kind of thing, right? So there's a line where you want to. I agree. You want to impress. You want to shine, but there's also humility. That is welcomed in interviews, right? As well as, you projecting, what a great, person you are in terms of ability to get a job done. And I think that comes across in some of the cases where, you've asked or an interviewer might ask, let me know where, you've had a hard time doing something or where you had a challenge getting something done, right? Where you can answer that question and display all of those different characteristics that ultimately bring around a sense of honesty, humility, partnership, co-working, and success. What were you going to say, Vincent?
So Deidre, when an interview gives you a question that exploits your vulnerability, how do you transform that into confidence?
So sometimes you have to take a pause in the question. That's one of the things last week we talked about. Sometimes if it really kind of catches you up and it's something you really can't think quickly on your feet, I think it's okay to say, can we come back to that question, and really do come back to it. But if you feel that, it's a vulnerable spot and it's not an area you want to discuss, then you got to make that call. But I think you want to be honest. You want to be forthright as much as you can. And maybe you give me an example of something you're referring to. This is an interview you did where it was challenging. The person said it was a challenging question?
Yeah. I had an interview in which, he was expressing my last position that I got fired from, which left me in a pretty vulnerable position.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
So, I think honesty is the best policy, as they always say, especially when it comes to, termination or what have you at the last employer. You never want to talk badly about your last place that you work, though. You never want to talk badly about the last manager you worked at. You want to just, again, these are things that they're going to come up, particularly related to a reason why you left a job. So those should be like hotbed responses you already have ready in your head to, because they're going to ask them. It's not like last week I asked some really vague questions or you might not know where I'm coming from. But these kind of questions you will know. Why did you leave your last job is pretty common. And so you got to be ready for that one.
Right.
So you shouldn't lead with, see, these mofos wouldn't listen, or, I had to express to them that I had to pick up my baby by 3:30.
Right. So you want to definitely have stories, though. I love stories as it relates to what happened at a place, that where you left. Again, we're not going to go 10, 15 minutes. Going to talk a minute or so about what happened at the particular place. maybe why you guys parted ways, but not ever leaning on bad mouth in the company or the employer, and just giving what direction you're trying to go now with your career or job, search.
Would it be
So you're not leading into an area that I just got terminated because this happened. You need to get your story straight. You need to because terminations do happen, and it could be performance. It could be you weren't on time. It could be
personality.
A host of things. Yeah, absolutely.
So would it be good to close that question with a takeaway, or saying what I've learned from that experience was?
I actually like that a lot.
Oh.
Yeah. I do. If you're being honest, and if it was something that was really terrible, you could have, if you're, let's say it was a situation where you were, you had a tardiness issue, because whatever you had personally going on in your life, and that's the same example you just said. Now you can say, okay, well, what I learned from that is it's important to be on time for a company. This is what I'm planning to do to make sure that I am on time. These are the steps that I've taken in my personal life. If you want to elaborate, I don't, that's a gray area for some folks. But I think that's a fair way to really kind of go about that.
Yeah, like, the boss was pushing up on me, keep asking me out to dinner. I kept expressing to him I'm not gay.
Then so you need help.
You know what? Deidre, I just got to imagine that when Vincent did have a job, that HR was constantly involved in whatever was happening over there. Because
he was getting written up from the door.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So looking back on that statement too, in terms of when you're interviewing, one of the things you want to definitely convey as well is your enthusiasm. So you're coming in there, you're super confident, but now you're gonna how can you display enthusiasm
But not desperation, right?
Exactly. Yes, that's a good point. Not desperation.
Like, I need this job. like whatever happens at the end of this thing, I gotta have this job. You don't want to do that.
No, there's a way to go about, I did a bunch of research on a particular company. The position fits exactly the experience that I've had, and this is why. And these are some examples of what I've done, and I think that this would be an absolute amazing opportunity, based on what I've done in the past. So I think you want to come in, confident and also enthusiastic about, meeting that person, because you're going to do research on that person. I checked you out online. I saw you're into, you worked at this particular place for, the last 5 years, so remember, you're interviewing them too.
Right.
So I think it's fair to kind of come in with a great attitude and to show that you've done, some basic research on that person and the company.
So let me ask you a question. So when you're going through that stage of the interview where you're showing enthusiasm, excitement about the opportunity, right? Genuinely, hopefully, right? Where you're realizing, wow, this is really a perfect opportunity. And all of my previous life's work has prepared me to be able to step into this role and really do a great job. So as you're conveying that, what balance do you suggest the interviewee displays in not just talking about what a great opportunity this is for me, but also for the company, right? Because the company should see how Vincent, for example, so Vincent might see as he's interviewing with you that, wow, this is a great role for me. But he can also convey to you how valuable he would be on that team that he's interviewing for, right?
Uh-huh.
So there's a balance to strike there, where I'm showing you that I'm enthusiastic about this, right? This is a great thing for me, but not only for me, but for the company as well. Based on the mission and vision that you share with me, I think that this is a perfect fit. And I think that I can get you to where you want to be in the third and fourth quarter of this year.
Right. Absolutely. And so that lends to examples, that lends to just sort of elaborating on your answer a little bit more, not completely controlling the interview. Sometimes there's a delicate balance when you're being asked questions that you don't want it to go on for too long, but you want to strike the balance with I just keep harping on the fact that you're going to have those stories. I think that was 2 or 3 episodes ago we talked about stories, because you're going to have them ready to display at any time. So you can just pluck them out. You can write them down. You're going to practice them. Now you're going to just pluck them out and say, there you go.
Yeah. I think that get.
Well, Deidre, we talked about earlier confidence in owning the room. Give some examples of how you can do that.
So the biggest one, like you mentioned earlier, is really your posture, your eye contact, your really answering the questions directly and not sort of circumventing the questions. Really talking about what you've done at a place clearly, and not sort of answer them in one sentence, one word response. So you want to just, you want to talk about your accomplishments in a way that conveys to that person that you've got a command of your last job. One of the things I've done, and when I've interviewed people, sometimes I'll talk to them about a last maybe 2 jobs ago, and they forgot what they did. And so that's you want to make sure you're going to go through your resume and remember all the things that you've accomplished, so that you're not sort of fuddling and kind of thinking, that place, So you want to make sure that those are things that you're going to take your time and go through, because they may not just talk about your last job. Even if you were there for 4 years, they might say, can you elaborate a little bit more about what you've done at this particular place? And so just making sure that you're going through your that resume and really talking through with yourself or with a friend about because we do forget. You might not have been there for 6 years, and why is that important? Because why it might be important is one aspect of what you did really look key to this company, and he might say, you might have a little bit of experience on marketing. I know you didn't do it in a while, but you did it a couple years ago. Maybe that might be something we can bring to the plate now.
Right.
And so you want to just make sure you're going through that.
So all of your past job experiences and life experiences make this present position that you're going for, it makes you well-rounded and even more prepared for it.
Exactly. Exactly. So one of the other things, and I know I always harp on analytical, quantifiable things that you've accomplished, but everyone likes to hear facts. Everyone likes to hear numbers. Everyone likes to hear saved or was able to increase profits or things like that, or any kind of way. Even if you were in an area where you helped them, reduce spend for, supplies, whatever it was, think about those things where a company has, you benefited a company in that particular way. Another thing, too, is companies like people that are able to kind of calculate things and quantify things. And so you want to be able to demonstrate those things, that you've done at that particular company in a way that, is going to benefit them.
Right.
So highlight your metrics. Give them a concise example of how you have saved money, time, and resources of other employees, and that and give them the actual numbers in terms of what it was before you took on the project and what it was after.
Yeah. So those are always things, and I know people sometimes struggle with that one, but if you can kind of dig back deep, or even now when you're working, think about, the things that you've accomplished. Think about the things that you've done to help the company, and put it on paper and be able to eloquently explain it.
Yeah, I think that the goal is to always present yourself as an asset and as a benefit to the company that is interviewing you. If the interviewer can see you as valuable, right? There's a greater likelihood for you to get the job. If the interviewer at the end knows a little bit more about you, but can't really see the value add to the company, then that presents a problem for you in terms of possibly being hired. Like, I mean, again, because they are trying to fill an open spot in order to be able to accomplish some very specific things, right? So when they're interviewing you, they're trying to find out whether or not you're the person that can fit in that spot and can accomplish those very specific things. So showing yourself to be, so it's kind of like, and I always use the sports analogies, right? But if I'm a, if I'm a, what is it, general manager, right? And I'm looking for a wide receiver because, we could have gone to the playoffs had we, been able to get more runs after the catch. So I'm looking for a very specific kind of wide receiver who not only can catch the ball, but is aggressive in terms of running. But you come and you interview me and you don't talk to me about any of those things. You talk to me about some other stuff. Well, now I know more about you, but I still don't know how you can help me after you catch the ball, run with it, so that we might be able to get to the championship game and ultimately the Super Bowl. So it's important when you're interviewing to show the value connected to the position you're interviewing for, so that the person who's interviewing you can clearly see why you would be an asset and a benefit.
Right. Absolutely. And so that lends to another one too, which talks, about sort of problem solving and how you were able to problem solve. I think I harped on that last week too, when I said a company wants an employee that can think for themselves, that can come in and get a problem and not necessarily say, well, how can I solve it? I mean, obviously, if you're green and you're brand new, maybe there might be, you've got to do something with some other staff. But even if you might come in with an example of say, hey, I kind of thought about doing it this way. I know I'm still kind of new here. I'm just kind of thinking through things, but what do you think of that as a solution to this particular issue that we're dealing with? Instead of just, wanting someone to constantly give you the answers to the problems, or right. If there's always going to be something that's going to come up, and you've got to be able to say, like, I hate the term. I know this is probably terrible. We always say, let me call management. So why don't you can think through it yourself first before you call management? To think about how best to handle that problem without trying to get someone else involved. Obviously, there's extreme situations where you may have to be, but is there something you can do to show your value, to show that you can handle this situation without running to management, quote unquote?
So is it better to just see a change needed for the SOP, or for those who aren't familiar, standard operating procedures of the business? Is it better to just make the change, or should consulting management before making the change?
I mean, I think you still need to consult with them. Obviously, depending on what it is, but if you're something that if there's a process that's already in place, you just can't go completely change it because there might be a reason for that process.
Right.
But my statement is just this: when you're working at a company, don't be just the yes person, right? You want to be able to come in and really demonstrate to them that you can add value by, handling some problems that come the way, or, even making suggestions or recommendations. That's another one too. So I think people think they come to a company and they've just got to sit in the corner and take the work as it comes. No, speak up. And right. Say, you know what, I kind of thought about it, and I know we've been doing it this way for the past 10 years, but it might be a way that we can kind of do it differently this way. That was just a thought. What do you think of that? And bring it to that person, because now that shows an employer that you're engaged and you're thinking through, and your way might be a better way. It might be a better solution to something they've been doing forever.
Right.
Right. So, Deidre, have you had interviewees that had great personalities but bad work performance? but was a real SOB on the job.
Yes. People can present themselves the best they can, and then when you may have had a fantastic work history in the past, and your performance was stellar, check references and they were stellar, and you get to the job and it's just not, maybe it might not be a good fit or maybe not be a good match. But that's why, again, you're interviewing the person, and the person's interviewing you to make sure it's going to feel good, at least initially. It's from what you hear from the interview and talking to people at the company. Like, all these kind of things are so key to make sure you're not going to come into a place where you're going to flounder.
So how do you put that to the best light? You're a great employee. I mean, you're excelling. You're exceeding all expectations, but I mean, you're so driven and focused that you have the personality of, milk toast.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get over that hurdle of, you're not the most, how do they say, doesn't play well with others?
So are you asking me how to have that conversation with the employee?
Yes.
Okay. So,
or if you're looking for the job and you're that employee, how do you express to them that, I'm all about the work. I'm not into the social life and all that other great things, company bowling and all of that stuff.
So that's when you already have the job. So I think that if you are working and you understand you're the employer and you understand how important it is to your staff to get along, there could be things that you might have to do above and beyond to help them to get that employee comfortable. It might have to be a lunch and learn. It might have to be, let's go out and do something social afterwards. But I would have an honest conversation, because some people do kind of get in their own way and they don't want to necessarily work with others. But that should be something that is really communicated by management, that you can't get away from not working with your team members. It's not going to work.
I see. So it's important to actually be a team player, team builder.
Always. So that goes back to that confidence and that enthusiasm, that wheeze that you're always talking about. That when you go into a company, unless you're a sole person, you're gonna, even if you've taken a job and it's only 2 people in the office, you and someone else, you got to work together. You got to support each other. And what best way can you do that so that it benefits both of you?
Right. Did she answer your question, Vicky?
So the last one talks about sort of when you're interviewing a company, and I know way back we talked about kind of giving your elevator pitch at the end.
Uh-huh.
I'm still a big advocate of that, where you're going to really summarize your experience, your look at the job description and figure out why you're the best person for this particular role. But it also lends itself back to sort of the research part of it and why this company is for you. So if you're interviewing there, you've got to take the time and marry everything together. Marry together that you've got this experience, marry together that this particular company, based on what they've done in the last year or so, and based on how you see them growing, because you've asked tons of questions at the interview, I hope, why these are all ways that you can contribute, and why that you think this is a great company. And you've got to command that. That comes with that confidence. So you have to command that in the interview and say, this is why I'm going to kind of boil it all together. I think some people feel reluctant to sort of summarize their interview, but I'm a big proponent of that, because it gives you that opportunity right at the end to kind of pull it all together and really demonstrate to that person, and leave those last words with them, that you've done you've shown all these different things to them. We've had a fantastic conversation over this period of time, and now at the end you're going to summarize it all together, talk about the company, why this is an amazing opportunity for you, with not the arrogant side, but the the enthusiastic side and how you're going to make a great contribution.
All right, you want to show me that you're going to be an important person in my organization, right? That you're going to be a key person, that you're going to actually, you're not just coming to collect a paycheck, but you're going to actually perform some tasks that are valuable to me.
And the way you're going to do that, I know people probably say, well, the interview's over. How do I do that? So at the very end of the interview, and the person says, okay, Eric, thank you so much for coming in. You answered a lot of my questions. Right then and there, you would just stop them and say, I really appreciate the opportunity. I just have a couple things I'd like to just kind of leave you with, if you don't mind. And you can just lend it right there. And there's your little intro. There's your little slide in to sort of just elaborate for a minute or so, kind of pulling everything together. And obviously, listening is a key skill too. So making sure you've listened to a lot of things you talked about during this interview. So now you can pick out a couple of those, maybe one or two, even, of those things, and mention it in your summary statement, so that you can lend them with that you did pay attention, right? That you're gonna lead with a lot of the accomplishments you've done and why, and you've researched the company. You understand how this is a great opportunity for you and whatnot. So it's a way to do it. Not a lot of people do it, but I hope that the listeners will consider that as when they're ending their interview.
So, Deidre, is it okay to bring a notepad and take notes when you're in an interview? Because I know I have done it, because there are sometimes, the interviewer can be long-winded, and I can definitely, go look out the window and think about something else. So I take notes so I can always go back and ask questions, or to make sure that they hit the points that I want to know about the job. Is that okay?
I actually think it is okay. Now, I wouldn't write full sentences. What I would do is I might just put a quick bullet point down on the paper. If you are, if you're the person that you really want to kind of put back, think on things.
Yeah.
And because I'm that way too. Like that question where sometimes I've had people where I've asked a really challenging question and they can't answer it, and they might say, can I write that down for a quick second? I can think about it. And I think that's an acceptable answer.
But you don't want them transcribing the entire interview.
No, exactly. That's why I said quick bullet, like a quick word or two. You don't want it to be a distraction to the interviewer either.
Right.
It's a delicate balance.
It is, because while the person, you got to be real careful, because while the person is talking, if your head is down in your notepad, right, writing down something, it could almost appear as though you're not paying attention.
Right. That's why I said if you're the kind of person that needs to do that, it has to be super quick, and it has to be a bullet or two and go back up.
Another thing that I found is asking the interviewer how they came into the company, how long they've been in the company, and what brought them to the company, helps give me an idea as to what's actually going on in the company atmosphere. Is that okay?
Absolutely. And that's sort of again, because you're interviewing them as well.
Right.
And so I think that's a fair question to find out what, where they came from. You should probably have some sort of understanding, because you can look their LinkedIn profile, but even still, you may not know all the intricacies. And people love to talk about themselves too. So that'll give that person an opportunity to talk about themselves for a minute or so about how they got to that point.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about my favorite subject. It's me. But I guess over talking about yourself is borderline not confidence, but more arrogance.
Yeah, and so you don't want your sentence. We talked about that last week with you, Vincent, because some of your answers are a little long. You don't want to get lost in the shuffle.
No
Conversation. So
but I'm talking about me.
So Deidre, when you were talking about presentation, where does the interview start? Does it start when you park in the parking lot, when you get in to speak to the receptionist, or when you actually get in to meet the interviewer? Where does the actual interview process actually start for the person coming in?
That's a great question. So I think it starts as soon as you walk in the door of the building. Because if you're going to sit, let's say you have to sit in the lobby, you have to wait for the person. You never know who that person is. They could be walking by, looking at you, so you want to, it starts the moment you walk in the door. Now let's talk about that for a quick second too, because this is one of the things that I think some folks don't think too much about is how early can you come for an interview?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the maximum should be 15 minutes. Any bit more than that kind of puts that person that's interviewing in an uncomfortable way that they feel like they have to interview. If you had a 11 o'clock interview, now you're here at 10:30. Now I'm feeling like, oh, maybe I have to come and get them, because now it's 10. Oh, goodness. No, it should be 15 minutes ahead of time. And that person may not come out until your desired time because they may have interviews. They may be busy.
Right.
But I've had someone show up an hour early for an interview. Not acceptable. Because you're making that person
You're like
feel
a stalker.
uncomfortable, that they feel an obligation to come and get you for the interview.
Look, if you
and
show
I know
up
you're
an
excited and you want to show your best foot, but maybe go get a cup of coffee for 45 of those minutes because maybe you were worried about where it was at, and I get that.
Yeah.
But don't show up and expect to be seen.
You don't want to be
not fair to the interviewer.
You don't want to be a stalker at your interview.
Right, exactly.
Like, is he still out there? Yeah, he's still out there. Deidre, what time was his interview? His interview's not until 2 o'clock. It's 9:30. He said, oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Come on,
So
people.
really, really important stuff.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you don't want to discount anyone. It's funny. I must have saw some clip on the person was like super mean to someone in the elevator.
Oh.
And then they wanted to find out that was the person that was interviewing them, and so you never know.
Yeah, I wouldn't even stay in that interview at that point.
Janitor up to the senior executives.
Yeah,
everyone
I would
with the same level of respect.
Nah.
Oh, absolutely. And the reason why I say that is because I know from my mom's experience, she would tell me people would come in for an interview and they would sit and talk to the receptionist or to the secretary and had these crazy conversations and not think that those conversations would not go back to her after the interview was over.
Yeah, if you have a good front desk person, they're going to share those things to you. You know what I mean? Good relationship with that person. I'd be picking their brain. Even what they're doing in the lobby. Sometimes people fall asleep in the lobby. No. You want to represent yourself the best. So don't do that.
That's funny. Well, listen, it's 11. I don't know if you're going to stay with us or if you got to bounce.
I'm going to listen for a little bit, but that's all I got for you guys for this week.
So, right. Deidre, how do people find you?
They can find me on the web. I'm going to put my link in. We actually have quite a few job opportunities. We're actually getting super busy. So I'm going to put my link on the Facebook part.
Uh-huh.
And they can check out a couple of our jobs that we have open right now. We're in Jersey City. The jobs we have are in Newark, Kearney, Bayonne, to get in the city, Jersey City, obviously. So if you're looking for work in those towns, we can help you.
There you go. Come on, guys.
Thanks.
Go get that job. Go make that money. Pay that rent.
Absolutely. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Deidre.
Have a
great day. So listen, I need to do a hard cut because everybody's talking about it, and the internet is actually winning right now.
Oh my God! Please don't say.
You know where I'm going with this, Diane. Diane.
All right, everybody, buckle up.
Diane, is she a predator? Is she a molester?
I'm going to say yes, and yes.
So now, wait a minute. So
in her own words,
she stalked this young man. This young man who was dealing with all kinds of health issues, right? This young man who had been molested, right? This young man who had he confided in her and she took advantage of him.
She
Wait, no, wait,
provided her as a parent, a
Wait.
parent-child relationship. That's how he looked at her.
Right. And she referred to it as an entanglement.
An entanglement.
An
So the
entanglement.
definition of an entanglement is a complex relationship. So her PR people gave her the perfect word that is going to sink her ship.
So,
But did you see Will Smith's face in that show?
yo, somebody said I saw a meme. I tell you, the internet is killing it. They said that he looks like he's in pursuit of happiness.
He does.
Yo, what was that all about? I was just sitting there going, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
However, this is not new news. And
No.
I don't know if
But why would they even do that? Why?
Well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you it's so much. It's so much. This has been going on for a long time. Years ago, they've always talked about they've had open relationships. There was a supposed relationship between him and Dwayne Martin and Tisha Campbell. When Tisha Campbell and Dwayne separated, Tisha Campbell found out that her name was not on the house, but it was Will's and Dwayne's name on the house, which brought about a whole bunch of other mess. This young man decided to come out on Angela Yee's Lip Service, which is a podcast. She does the video podcast. She is one of the co-hosts on The Breakfast Club with Charlamagne
the God.
So she's now spinning off because there's also rumors that Breakfast Club is about to fold because they're not getting along anymore. There's a whole lot going on since the downfall of Wendy Williams and Kevin and Wendy breaking up and this relationship with Charlamagne and it's just a whole...
Charlamagne and DJ Envy have been having some issues.
So anyway, so she... so he goes on to Angela Yee's podcast and he goes on...
You're talking about August.
Huh?
You're talking about August.
August, yes. August goes on to Angela Yee's podcast to talk about his new album drop, 27 songs. He's talking about this. So if anybody wants to hear it, just Google Angela Yee's Lip Service with August at the 17-minute mark because it was killing me to get to the point where he started to talk about it. And literally only talked about it for probably 4 minutes. How he was friends with her daughter. With her son. He was friends with Jada's son. They were friends. He would come to the house. He considers them family. He would never say anything against them. There was a spiritual connection. There was this, that, and the other. And what he's saying is he didn't want his name to be out there in public as if he did something wrong when he did nothing wrong. So he basically wanted people to know he wasn't a homewrecker. There were blogs about this years ago that talked about that Jada and August were spiritually married, and they had signed their names in the sand. And
oh God! Wait. So let me do this. Let me do this. How old is he?
He's in his 20s, so he must be maybe 25, 26.
So Jada's. So Jada's she is
Jada is 40.
Jada's a cougar.
48. No, she's a predator.
She's a predator. She is a predator. That is a predator. Listen, I don't even.
Really a predator.
See, we got to be real. I mean, I know that we're making light of it, but she understand what she did.
She did the same thing that a pimp would have did trying to season one of their prostitutes. She's a
yeah. She got him so emotionally involved with her that it was just easy.
Right. He said splitting up was like a death to him. He said no. Yeah. He said yes. It was like I died, and I felt that I had never been in love with somebody so much before and given my whole self to them that if I had died today, I would have felt like I have given everything out and I'm good.
She turned him out. Damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
Wow.
So
good nana.
I haven't heard that term in years.
Yo. So, and so here's my thing. Like, I want to know why people are not just exploding over her. And I mean, like, yeah, I saw
But
it.
it's like a political thing. You tell the story so nobody else can tell the story for you. Which
Right.
because what happened was he told the story first. People jumped on it. She came out and denied it. Denied. It's not true. It's not true. And then it exploded to the point when he got on Angela Yee that she had to address it. And that's why on her red table talk, she had to say, I brought myself, Will brought me to the table, and we had to talk about this. No, you talked about this because Will was saving his persona and his money, because he's the money of the house. He's the fight star. She ain't bringing nothing to the table. He's got the big money. He's the backing. So he was protected, his namesake. So this way, when he goes back out there, it doesn't bother. It has no cloud over his head. This is
Right.
Well, why?
Because
But why
he's the
would this
victim.
have clout over? I mean, why? I don't know why it would affect him at all. I mean, she was the predator,
right.
and
It would affect him because, like I said previously, the story was that him and Dwayne Martin were having a relationship. And
Right.
that's part of the reason why Tisha Campbell and Dwayne split up, because she got tired of being the beard when she found out, and then found out on top of that.
wait a minute.
Yes,
That Will Smith and Dwayne.
Yes.
Wait a minute. I see that went right over my head.
Yes. Well, listen, man. What? So listen to this part. Why would another man have his name on your house when you and your wife are married? You bought the house for him.
Now I do remember them having like like rumors that were going around that they had an open relationship and that all kind of kinky.
It wasn't a rumor, because a couple of years ago, Will came out and purposely said it. And I'll send you the video clip of him saying it. That we decided that he said that he could no longer try to make her happy, and it was up to her to find her own happiness. And we had decided that she would find her independent happiness, I would find my independent happiness, and then we would come together collectively and be happy. He said it at his own words.
Oh, my head is hurting. My head is hurting.
Yes.
Well, but you know what? See, I'm trying to stay in this place, in the place of judge lest ye be judged, right? So, if the two of the look, and I gotta say this too, the young man, he was not a minor, right?
No,
So he was an adult,
No.
and so there was no law broken, right?
But she's still a predator.
No. I understand that piece, right? So
Yeah.
that she took advantage of him.
Well, wait, because I don't know exactly what he meant. Came into the family dynamics, because he's like I said, he's in his 20s, and he's been friends with her son for some time. So I don't know how long.
Oh, so
he's
you
going.
think that she might have been
No.
grooming him?
Yes.
So wait, because that's what predators do. They groom.
Grooming. Yes,
They
absolutely.
groom,
Because
right?
she said she was giving him emotional support. He had so many health issues. We were trying to help him. So how do
Hey,
you
Vincent, can you, Vincent,
He was
from
trying
your,
to overcome drugs,
Vincent,
Yeah.
and she wasn't grooming him like a predator. She was grooming him, like Diane said, a pimp.
No. So I want to ask a question, Vincent. Can you look up and see from your internet exactly how old this young man is? Right. So while I'm trying to get to the actual age.
Because he said it was over. He said it out of his own mouth that it's been many years.
That's why I want to
of
find out how old.
A relationship. You see what I'm saying? So it's many years that this relationship has gone on.
Right.
It didn't just happen. It just came out because he's been on his drug binge, and it came out. It was not supposed to come out because he kept it secret for many years. So there have been rumors flying around it for some time.
See, we're gonna get to the bottom of this, and because if she was grooming him when he was a minor,
Why would we don't even have to put the minor in here. She was grooming him at a vulnerable time in his life. He was emotionally depleted, mentally depleted, physically depleted because of health issues. Like, she groomed him. It is what it is. She's a predator. Because I don't see how it goes from, I'm trying to help him, my son's friend, to y'all ended up in the bed, and then y'all having this long-term relationship.
An entanglement, Diane.
And he, whatever. And what he,
wait.
Relationship.
Wait, what did Will say? Will said an entanglement. Yeah. Like he didn't get the memo. He didn't get the memo from her PR people.
He didn't get the memo from her PR people.
Yeah, her PR people didn't say it.
And see, out of August's mouth, August said he had a conversation. All three of them had to sit down, and Will gave the okay to it. And this is why he had to say.
What's that? I hear noise.
Put out there public.
I don't know what that is.
Vincent. That's why he had to come out publicly and denounce, or rather, come out publicly and act like he's denouncing the charade that she's got going on.
Oh gosh. So now I understand, because during the Red Table talk, she said, her being Jada, said that only she can give permission. Let's see if we can take this call. Hold on. Hello, caller.
Hey, Eric.
This is who?
Jody.
Hey, Jody.
Hi, how are you, Diane?
Jody, what the hell?
So he's 27 now. So it happened in 2015. So he was 23? Oh.
Okay.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's when they met, right? So Jody, predator or predator? Is she a predator or not? No. So this is my opinion of it. One, I want to talk about education and COVID, because that's like so much more important to me. And the show went off yesterday, Eric, and I wanted to say something, but just quickly about that. I think that sometimes, one, they live a different lifestyle than we do. He wasn't even 18. He was 25. She was definitely a cougar. 23, I'm sorry. She was definitely cougarish. It was definitely bad behavior, ill behavior, just because he was a friend of her son. Period, right? But, they do freaky things. They do what they do. But I don't think that the internet right now, Black Lives Matter, should be going after, that was definitely a publicist-driven interview. Yes, he had to save his career. I felt bad for them as a couple, but they have to actually discuss their indiscretions and, wild behavior. But would I call that woman a predator? Hell no. No. She just displayed very bad behavior. Jody, they don't have to discuss their behavior. They could have stayed silent at the same time. The only reason they have to is because, Diane, you and I know, in that lifestyle, right? He had
in the lifestyle of being in the public.
In front of the story, right? Just like a politician, this is a different lifestyle, right? So it was either going to be our, which is look at our decision of what that story is. We're calling a predator. We're making memes. We're going in, right?
I didn't make any memes yet.
Their line of work, for him to continue to be, for her to continue to make money for their family, they had to, bad decision, in my opinion, they had to jump out and get in front of that story. But what doing it hard. Right. They had to come out because he came out and spoke about it. Because like I said, for years, they have just nixed it off. And she even had a public weeks ago and said, not true, not true, not true. But, yeah.
Hey, I gotta tell you, I never heard.
Bill needed to save his paycheck and his payday.
So I know you said that this is an old story, Jody, but I didn't hear about it.
I don't think it's old story. No, I don't. Not that it's old. You asked earlier about the ages, like what was his age?
Oh, I see. Got you.
So I googled it for you really quickly.
Thank you.
And pulled up he's 27 now. It happened in 2015. So just for the math of was he a teenager?
He was 22.
Yeah, ready to me and Diane and you, he was a kid.
Yeah.
He had business in that space. No bullshit, right? But I just don't believe that. I don't. Honestly, I ain't got time for Will and Jada. I got some other stuff going, Eric.
All right. Well, let's talk about the let's flip it, right? So we're gonna make another hard cut, because we have 45 minutes, and this may take up the whole 45 minutes plus some.
It should, Eric.
Right.
It should.
So there was a comment made yesterday. We were talking about schools, whether they should open or not, whether it's safe to open. I have a cousin who is a elementary school teacher. She and I had an in-depth conversation about this, and she's afraid to go back to school.
Yes, and right. Another teacher, she's afraid to go back as well.
And there was a comment in the thread yesterday that said that if the teachers don't go back, then they should just go find another job. I thought that was crass.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And see, this is the other thing that I had a comment about, and I posted it earlier. What are the teachers' unions saying? Because this is where the unions are supposed to step in to protect the welfare of their teachers, because teachers are supposed to be able to teach in an environment that is safe for them. So how is this going to happen? Yeah. So quickly, there was a young lady that did a YouTube video yesterday, one of my friends, and she talked about, she's an educator, been an educator over 20 years, how the conversion onto online teaching was a challenge, but she was up for the challenge. She's very concerned about going back because her sister and brother-in-law had COVID. He was sick. The brother-in-law was sick for over 20 days, was in the hospital, came home, was sleeping in the basement to stay away from the rest of the family. The wife was sick on Tuesday with a fever. On Thursday, had pneumonia. They got 2 small kids they had to take care of. She was able to keep the 2 kids because she was scared to send the kids somewhere else because she didn't want anybody else to get sick. She ended up getting better. The husband got better. They all 4 went to go get tested. All 4 were positive. Even the children who showed no signs, who were still running around playing and having a good time. So my question is, how do you send kids to a school and think that taking their temperature is going to make a difference? Because it could have been the kids that carried it and passed it on to the parents. Right. So there is no way to figure it out. Taking a temperature means nothing.
So you know what? Honestly, as a parent of a 13-year-old, 8th grade, right, missed her half of her 7th grade year, and we're in a new area. Okay, so all right. And I worked out in it, Eric, like big time. Took on 2 jobs because it was a good time to make quick money because everyone was quitting their jobs, right? So, but here's what I think parents should be upset about. When COVID started, for 3 months back in March, you took our children out of school, right? And I get it. And so my baby's been in a house because there's no siblings here. She's been in a house for 3 months. The first initial here in North Carolina virtual school was BS, right? You didn't really see your teacher. You looked at videos and you answered the questions and you took tests that way, and you only saw your teacher if you went into office hours at a certain time. Now my baby is in AP Math, AP Science, AP English, right? We got past that. When people said to me, you know, and took this as a joke, hey, how's Lena doing? Hey, she's a lot stupider than she was last year, but we're moving on, right? Okay. Now we're in this space. And what is most insulting, what parents, teachers, educators across this country should be mad about is, for 3 months, I watched them do COVID on TV. I watched the political, the media, right? They never talked about education. But this was the only issue that had a deadline. Education had a deadline. We were going to come to a space at the end of the summer where children had to return to school, right? They gave $1,200 stimulus money. They gave $1 trillion to businesses. They gave more money on an EBT card.
Vincent, you got to stay online, man. I can't.
Yeah, I have some.
You got food in school for your children. They never allotted a dime for this to happen, and they never had a plan. That is like, to me, forced genocide, because I was talking about it 3 months ago. Who will suffer? Who will...
Well, but wait a minute, Jody, let me say this. Jody, let me say this. there was conversation about education, because when they pulled, let me finish. Let me finish.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right, there was conversation about education, and the conversation that was taking place around education was how urban children, black children in particular, were being. Please allow me to fit. Okay.
Well, I disagree with you. Go ahead.
Okay. How they were disadvantaged because they didn't have internet access, they didn't have computers, they didn't have all these things. So there was conversation around education. There was no conversation around the fall and going back to school. But there was conversation around education. Now, I believe that in the middle of this, and yes, they need to all be held accountable, because if you have Board of Education members, right, their focus, and you have a superintendent of schools, right, I'm talking on local levels, right, and they should be asking these questions that are being put. This is why I say it's all local, because what questions were they asking that were then being pushed up to the governor, right? That was then being pushed out to the federal government, right? Nobody was asking these questions. But it all has to do with the fact that they all lack the acumen. None of them are qualified to be there, and now we're gonna have a shit show come fall. That's what's gonna happen. And God help black American children. They are going to be so goddamn far behind. It is ridiculous. Absolutely. It is ridiculous. Yeah. And so for me, this whole notion of Black Lives Matter or all Black Lives Matter, you didn't give a damn about black lives.
Means nothing. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So cut it out. Cut it out. Cut the emotionalism out. Because you drove these children into a goddamn ditch. You did it.
Yeah, I think it's so tragic. So here in North Carolina, the option we were given, and you had to make the decision within a 3-day period, was that your child, you either opt for virtual school, and once you sign off to that application, you cannot go back. So 6 months into the school year or 3 months into the school year, you are stuck to that choice. The other one was 5 days in, 2 weeks.
Hey, hold on. One second, Jody, Vincent, you got to stay on the line, because when I do that, it cuts her off. So I don't know why your phone continues to disconnect, but if I have to keep bringing you on while she's talking, I have to disconnect her to bring you on. Go ahead, Jody. Okay. Finish.
So it was, the virtual learning, and they say it's going to be more intense or whatever, but it's just it's so horrible that I feel like my baby is going to be, and this is just a parent's perspective, right? That she's going to be locked in a house. To me, that's like a jail sentence. You can't communicate with any other children. You don't have and she's in the 8th grade. You don't get the chance to have an argument like a boy. Like, it turned our lives upside down. And I'm much like you, Eric. I feel like you guys were arguing over BS. The distractions that black folk face in this country is amazing, and you never thought about your kids. They sent you a $1,200 stimulus check and gave you $300 on an EBT card, and you never started asking, what's going to happen to my child? And that is, it doesn't matter to this country, because they understand that it's going to largely affect our children, right? I'm watching it in neighborhoods where there's more money. There is connections of tutoring that happened this summer. Like they're gonna make sure.
But here's the thing that gets me, right? And this is why I think that Cory Booker is such a scumbag, right? He lacked the courage during his presidential run to allow the words reparations come out of his mouth, right? Because he saw that it would be damaging to him. But now now that all of this is bubbling up, that piece of shit, and I'm going to call him that piece of shit, he wants to try to ride this whole wave. I'm telling you, they're all garbage. They're all garbage. And the fact, and so,
and you know what? Everybody who voted for him in New Jersey is a piece of shit too.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right.
You gotta call him out.
You gotta call you out.
His ass out, voting for anybody but him because he looks like you and he's done nothing for your school system. He's doing nothing for the state. He addresses no issue.
And listen,
whatsoever.
And I'm gonna tell you this. Remember this, right? And some people who call me, and I've been deleting people from my phone and off of my Facebook page. I want you guys to go back and look at all of those people who, I'm talking in Essex County, but you can go beyond, right? Who, when Corey was running, they ran and put his face and his logo from his campaign on their Facebook pages. All of those people are pieces of shit. See, because they're not holding him accountable. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And so when we say,
the same, all of them.
And when we say those who you won't let die won't let you live, you're allowing all of those pieces of shit to live. And that's why you're dying. That's why your children are dying. That's why they're going to be in such a deficit in terms of education. Meanwhile, everybody's celebrating the painting of a goddamn mural on a dirty street in the city of Newark. Saying Black Lives Matter. And then right around the corner, they're selling drugs. Cut it out. Enough.
It's tragic.
It is tragic. It is tragic. I'm telling you.
So Jody, what are you deciding to do? Are you going to, have you thought about homeschooling? Do you even have that option to homeschool? Now that's the other thing.
So that's why
kids that stay home, what do you do?
So this is why I called them, because I have that perspective, right? But so my sister-in-law here, teacher for 30 years, she's actually teaching teachers now in ESL. And she explained to me, because honestly, I was like, she's going back. I'll do that 5 days, and I'll teach her how to do it, because I feel like it's unhealthy mentally for my baby to be locked in a house without that social and learning those social skills that are very important before you go to high school. And then my sister-in-law said to me, well, here, and she gave me, like Eric said, that teacher's perspective. And we had a long conversation about, hey, here in North Carolina, 25% of the teachers in Wake County are retiring. There is no substitute teachers because most of them are over the age of 65. So they're not coming back. And she basically said, you'll send your baby into like an experiment because no one knows. And no one knows how. So I chose the option, but then I have something else because my niece here is also a teacher who can't go back because of her illnesses. So my baby can at least go to their home with 4 other children and have that at least teacher experience as she does that.
Okay, because that's what
my issue is never me. My issue is always that I know that there's a woman like me, single, child, who doesn't have that, right? Her baby is just like Eric said, that they're just going to evaporate in this country. They're going to lose, and they are being set up to lose, and in large part, Black people are liking it. Black people are doing that because if you march for the death of a man, right? Then you march for the education of your children. Parents should be out in the street in droves this morning. Teachers should be out in droves because that situation that George Floyd faced is a lack of education. Being in certain spaces, places, and in a certain predicament in this country that you are suffering, right? I don't get why education. So I looked up some things. So here, right? So Denmark went back to school. They had 30 cases since they opened up their school, right? But Denmark is 4th in the world in education. Japan was able to go back to school. They're number 2. South Korea was able to go back to school. They're number 3. I mean,
but I think some of the reasons they were able to go back to school is, one, how they treated the pandemic to begin with, what they did, and led up to being able to open up their
Okay,
country.
so Diane, can we stop there for a second? So
And
we
they value education, because they value it, right? Denmark is literally number 4 in the world in the school system, right?
But Jody,
they value education.
But Jody,
they made sure they were ready.
But Jody, but here's the real issue. Let's have the honest conversation, right? This is all happening during a presidential election. And they decided to play politics with this, both sides.
Yeah.
You understand? So let us be clear about what it is. They decided to play politics. Democrats see an opportunity. They see an opportunity to take another swipe at Donald Trump, right?
Absolutely.
And Donald Trump and the Republicans see opportunities, right, to take a swipe at the Democrats in order to get. And in the middle of that, the casualty, the tragedy, these children, and all of them. But I'm concerned about the Black American children. See, because they're at the very bottom.
So, Eric, going back to the book that we read, when
affirmative action was white.
When affirmative action was white.
Yeah, they're gonna take care of them white kids.
They talked about in the book, especially under the GI Bill, how they gave educational rights to white people and made sure that blacks couldn't get it. Even if they had in the services, when they came out, they would not hire them to do certain jobs. So they, according to their skill set, so they would end up being porters, baggage claim people, working in hotels, and cooks, because they wanted to keep them the bottom class. They're doing the same thing again. It's happening again with our education system. They're picking and choosing who gets an education.
And you know what black people are doing? Right? We're doing nothing. We're doing nothing.
Nothing about it.
We're not doing anything.
This is the thing. What we have to look at is this, and we discussed this on the show. Okay? Yes, we're right there, and we're the biggest casualty of this political battle. And yes, the educate, and you're right, Diane, and the book was right that it's not geared towards black people. If we are in a new norm right now, then we already know that the education system has failed our children. So let's develop the new one. Now, hold on. Let me finish. Let me finish.
They failed the children of the 20s and 30s, who are now the grandparents and great-grandparents of the kids.
Thank you.
Again.
This didn't just start.
Yes, it has to stop. So we're building a new norm. The other thing is that the president don't know anything about government. He can't open up the schools just like he can't open up the churches. The only people who can open up the schools are your superintendents. So if we're going to protest, say, hell no, you ain't put my child in a death camp, then we need to start knocking on the doors of all of these superintendents and tell them this crap ain't going to happen. Take that money, start paying for some Wi-Fi, take that money, start having some people, test for the virus, and then come in and visit my child once a week. Take that money and develop some new programs that's going to work for our children. All this other book.
The biggest issue is the health concern, and they have addressed that. Until they address the health concern, schools will open and they will close up again. They've had summer camps here in New Jersey, out in Kansas, California, that have shut down because people have gotten infected. So until they address the health issue, nothing is going to move forward. If they want to continue education, what they should be doing, which would make sense, is go to the people who've been doing this the longest.
Right.
Go to the homeschool educational systems.
There you go.
Talk to them about working with them to convert for at least until December a homeschooling system, educating them online, and giving them an outsource on activities to come out of the house to get involved with the community or whatever. Because they cannot just send them off to school, because literally, we talked about death traps. That's what this is about to be.
That's exactly.
It doesn't have to be for the kids, because I just gave you an example of a family who kids tested positive, did not show a fever, and were just as active and happy and playful as always. but the parents were sick, the adults, and they are young adults
And talking
in their 40s. So what do you think is going to happen? You sent an abundance of kids going back to school, 10 days on, 5 days off. That doesn't mean anything. That just means you get affected at a different time. That's what
exactly. And going on social media when in communities that are predominantly white, 92% of them would say, my child ain't going back. Bottom line, my child ain't going back. So why should we hurt our black children into these schools? One, they're failing them, and two, they're setting them up to die.
I don't.
The hell with that.
Their kids don't have to go back. I think that's the issue, right? Their kids don't have to go back. They won't face much of a penalty. They solidify their faith in this country, right? Our children will suffer the penalty, right? I said this to my sister, who said to me, kind of like Vincent, I think moving forward, she said, this is going to be good, where children are able to not have those situations in classrooms where they don't learn, and they're getting this virtual learning, and that it can be driven to show academic progress, right?
Correct.
We always do that, right? Where our children, so while they're fixing the glitches, right, parent by parent, you feel like, well, my baby's in the 8th grade. I really don't have time for them to fix the glitches, right? Lena was up next year to go to a boarding school in Durham for dramatic arts, right? They're going to reject her now because they're going to say that due to COVID, there is no accurate academic tool to say she should be there. They're going to, and this is, I can guarantee this, and no one could convince me otherwise, but there's going to be there's going to be a white child in a neighborhood who face the same thing as Lena. They'll get in.
Right.
So so Lena's life is put up in this little space of concern and total genocidal epithet, and my baby doesn't have time. So that's why I get confused or I get nervous as a parent when people start saying we're going to build up something new. You know how many black children will be lost in this build up something new?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Listen, we got another call.
Oh my God.
Got a call. Call or go.
Hey, Eric, this is Will Hassel
Go,
with
Will.
Orange. How are you today?
What's going on, Big
How's
Will?
everybody doing?
Hey, Will,
reference to this
thing going on?
In reference to this conversation, when you're here in the city of Orange Township, right now our superintendent of schools, along with our school community, okay, they held last week, Eric, a conversation on Zoom where educators, community stakeholders, the superintendent is putting on a reopening plan, okay, that's going to involve the entire Orange community. What's happening now, today or yesterday, if anybody's interested, go on the Orange Board of Education's Facebook page to see that plan, the reopening plan.
Right.
They're actually putting out a school survey, okay, to ask parents if they want to do virtual learning or in-house learning. Okay, I spoke to a Board of Education member yesterday, not going to mention his name. He indicated to me that he was in favor of virtual learning right now, at least up until January, okay? And also in Orange, the school district lost a lot of grants as far as, the reference to Montclair University, Montclair State University, King University, with their relationships in reference to, programs and all that. My thing is, I'm not a parent. I'm a former grad of Orange High School here in Orange, and I spoke to him in reference to, well, why don't we have some virtual learning compared to the classroom, and ask students if they want, some families might want to come into the classroom 1 week or staggered times where school districts could, option. It'd be an option for a parent. You know what I mean? I'm not a parent, so I wouldn't know. Like Jody in North Carolina was talking about
the safety of the kid. It's very important. Let's weigh it out and let the community decide. And there's a lot of issues out here. With testing, should students get tested before they go into the classroom? There's a big article on page 83 of the Star Ledger today where they outline some of the issues. Issue number one, should everyone be required to get coronavirus testing at the start of the school year? Okay, issue number two, will New Jersey education officials require coronavirus testing and screening? Okay, and Diane Murray Clemens, she's an educator, Diane, and you were talking about the...
Oh, no, I'm not an educator. My daughter is.
Okay.
All
right, the New Jersey Education Association, the state's largest teachers union, is asking for similar daily temperature checks for all students, teachers, and staff, including before students board buses. So, like Eric was saying, or Jody was saying, how do we know that just taking a temperature check, is that going to be the resolve? And also, what happens when people get sick? Will they be required to get a COVID test to return to school?
Not even that. Well, so what happens if you get one student or one teacher that's sick in a classroom? Does that mean that now all those kids now have to be quarantined at home?
Of course it does. Of course it does.
So our governor should take another look at this.
Right. One of the biggest
and it's a scary situation. One incident can occur and the state of New Jersey can be shut down again.
Exactly. But one of the things...
And it's an unfortunate thing. We as community members, like I live in Orange, I'm born and raised here in the city. I went to school here in Orange, and it's a whole different scenario now where, people are frightened. They're scared. We're living through a painful thing right now, and my heart goes out to Jody and her son down in North Carolina. Public officials should weigh their options. Keeping the school closed is, until January. Do we understand that school district lose money? Or are we gonna put our kids risk at lives before it's funding? You know what I'm saying?
But not even.
Okay. Not even that, Will.
What were you gonna say, Diane?
The other thing that we have to be concerned about with that, Will, is when you're talking about giving parents options to either keep their kids home and be taught online or come into a classroom, is you're putting extra pressure on teachers. So what you can't have everything or an option. It has to be one way. Either we're going to teach at home or they're going to come back to school. And
exactly. When you talked about a family that got sick, a younger family, you were saying in previous comments on the show a little early before I got on the program. You got to be very careful with the situation. It's a touch and go situation. Also, Governor Murphy, he's up for re-election here in Jersey, and also some of the legislators are. We have to, voice our concerns to our elected officials, our community people. But in the Township Orange School District, our superintendent, Dr. Fitzhugh, he made it very clear that security first and the kids, and the survey is going to be coming out, or it came out, and they're asking people what is their opinion about it. You know what I mean? So
But here's the part of government.
Why hasn't the teachers union come out and said something? Because that's going to dictate whether these teachers are going to come back and teach regardless.
There you go.
Well, the head of the, I forget her name, Gart something. She was on the other day, the head of the teachers union, and she said that what you said, that teachers shouldn't be forced to go back in dangerous situations. The teachers union is against the reopening of schools. And as they should be, right? You're going to be concerned about your daughter, Diane. You don't want your daughter to return to that environment. And we do have to think of teachers. That's why I say that I'm just so disappointed that it wasn't, the top of the agenda, right? Because like I said earlier, it had a deadline. This was the one issue that had a deadline where we were going to have to open up schools a couple of months out. And so I felt like that get lost in, as Eric said, the political bantering back and forth. They put my baby's life in jeopardy for politics again.
Yep.
There you go. There you go. Politics is dictating the life and welfare of our families.
I wanted to share with everybody, reading this article, it says New Jersey's current only has the capacity to test about 20,000 people a day, said Judith Percy-Kelly, the State Department of Health Commissioner, okay? So far, she says, so far, New Jersey has only tested about 1 billion people since the start of the pandemic. Percy-Kelly goes on and says it is less than the total number of school-age children here in the state. So there's what it is, you know?
Now, see, what we have to do now is this, because we know the rules in the government. The only one who can control the opening of the schools are the superintendents. Now, if people want to put their kids, let their kids be canary in the coal mine and test to see if this virus is real, fine. But I'm not going to do that. Nor do I want my wife's life in danger being a teacher and bringing it home. So, look, the bottom line is this. Hold on, Will. The bottom line is this. If we need to, one, decide that this ain't going to happen. It ain't going to open until they have a full vaccine with 98.9% accuracy. So until that happens, no, there should not be an opening of schools. We need to find.
I totally agree with you, Vincent. Atlanta, I'm just going to finish and I'm going to go. The Atlanta School Board today agreed to delay the first day of school by 2 weeks in Atlanta. So that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? So you're going to have, you know, like Diane was saying, you know, we got to look out for the kids. You know, all the kids in the classrooms and all the teachers, one person gets sick, you know, it could be a shutdown of the entire state again. You know,
right, but you understand.
It's very hard. It's very hard in the classroom. Okay, I've been in the schools in Orange. Okay, unless they make social distance and all that, you know, the kids in the classroom. Yeah, sometimes you know, schools are overcrowded also.
Right.
Do you know how hard it is to social distance 10-year-olds?
Right.
Yeah.
Come on.
What were you saying, Diane?
Right, I agree with that. Listen, I agree with you. Big Will agrees with you. Okay.
All right, Big Will.
So I'm gonna leave it at this, okay?
Real quick, Will. Real quick.
What's happening in Orange?
Right.
For a couple weeks. In a couple weeks, I'll come back and talk about you know what's going on. Also, we have in the school board election. It's probably going to be by mail-in ballot also. So it is what it is. I don't agree with kids being in the classroom. I'm not, like I stated before, I'm not a parent. I don't have any children in the school system.
Real quick, come on, wrap it up.
I just wanted to come on to the show and break some of my feelings and share some of my the article in the Star Ledger today.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Two things. Most buildings, school buildings in New Jersey and other communities, older buildings, do not have the capacity to social distance because they don't have that much room, and some of them are sharing their space with other charter schools and other schools. The second thing is this mail-in ballot thing. Even though I am not against mail-in ballots, it's a sham. They've already found out that there's been thousands in New Jersey, just in Montclair, of ballots that were not qualified because they said they received them late, not because not because the voter mailed them out late, but because they received them late, which could have been the fault of the post office. It could have been the fault of somebody in the building, whatever.
In reference to speaking to the election, Diane, communities like Montclair, Newark, I believe it was Northeast Orange, and they got the boxes provided by the county. Okay.
Right. Yep.
But I don't know if that helped in any kind of way of getting.
Doesn't matter. Don't trust it. This is my thing, Will. Moving forward, if people can go out to the grocery stores, do you know what you could do with voting? You can extend it to have 1 week of voting, and then people can staggeringly come in and have social distancing. Because I don't trust the mail-in ballots no more. That's it. There's no reason why the machines can't be set up and one monitor can be in there with a county employee to oversee the machine for that day and we do
And
voting.
sterilize the machine afterwards.
Yes.
We did have an orange. I just wanted to share this.
Real
We
quick.
did have an orange
Yeah.
at different spots. People who did not receive the ballots
Right.
came in to vote provisional.
Yeah.
So there was some social
But
distancing
you have to
in
remember,
reference to that.
well, provisional ballots are always counted after the traditional election is done. So when the electronic votes come in, they count that. When the mail-in ballots come in, they count them as they come in up to the expiration date. Provisional ballots may not be counted until after the election has already ended. And usually, sometimes they may not get counted because the election is already, the numbers show that somebody's always so far ahead, there's no really a need to count them. So that's not
Right.
a good thing either.
But I also wanted to bring up this point in reference to, I don't know who brought it up in the conversation, a reference to having kids, do school and home. Okay, I think Diane, you brought it up in reference to having some social activity after the school session is home, done by home. Just not to isolate these kids, in a room and in a teaching environment. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Just have some little activities that they could, maybe watch a movie or participate in a virtual movie. You know what I'm saying?
See, that's the Democratic bullcrap, or that they say. Because hold on, no, listen to me.
I'm talking about kids having social and emotional problems. I mean, if you're in a room, per se, for instance, we're going to pick an 8th grader, okay? An 8th grader, 7th grader, 6th grader in the room doing virtual learning, okay?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Doing homeschooling. There's got to be some activities after some type of...
Yes, we give our children recreational activities, Will. That's not the issue. But what they want to prove, something after the school, the homeschooling. Something after the homeschool, exactly. Give them activities, but you cannot put them all in the same room in terms of giving them a social. Exactly. Right. That's where I'm at. See, and believe me,
I'm glad you agree with that.
I agree with that. But then we also have to look at that we're in this informational age, and my daughter spends at least 70% of her day socializing with everybody on all of the Snapchat, the Zooms, and all that other.
But honestly,
that's your fault as a parent that don't spend that much time on social media. But those kids who don't, they're
what happens if kids don't have computers in their homes?
Exactly.
All right, guys, we're talking over each other. All right, let's show some discipline. Wait, Vincent, let's show some. Vincent.
You mean they can't get computers?
Vincent.
I got your point, Vincent.
Let's show some discipline.
We're talking about school systems in Newark, and Newark has a $1 billion budget. You mean to tell me they can't buy Wi-Fi?
Okay, we gotta show some.
I agree with that. You just did.
We gotta show.
You are the guy, man. You're the guy, okay?
All right.
So I wanted to just let you guys know, I'll keep you guys abreast of what's happening in my community. As far as what's going to happen.
Thanks, Will. Listen.
Thanks, Big Will. Appreciate you.
All right, Vincent, I need you to.
Try to keep everyone safe
Right.
for upcoming school.
Okay. Vincent, I need you to recognize when you.
It is a new normal going on.
All right, thanks, Will.
Eric, I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks,
Hey,
Will.
Will, there's a new normal going on,
Vincent.
and I'm glad you are giving your input on how to make this new norm work for all of us.
Vincent.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay?
Thank you, Will.
I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right.
All right.
Vincent,
All
I
right,
need you to I need you to recognize when we're talking over each other. Like, I try to control Will, but I need you to know and then recognize it. And so when you're talking over, people are inboxing me saying, I can't hear. I can't understand what's going on. Right? So we have to, as folks on the show the discipline to allow the other person, even if they're trying to talk over, just let him say what he's saying. And then when he's quiet, then come back in. But we can't have that conversational thing talking, we can't, and then and it just gets tiring saying it over and over again. Anyway, we got problems, guys. We got, and what's shameful, what is shameful is that black folk are in the dark about it, or they just don't care about it. And then I'm sorry?
They don't understand, Irvin. They don't understand. This is going to be another generation that's going uneducated. They don't understand.
Yep. Right. Yeah. Right. And we need to get ahead of that. We need to be in the front line to prevent that.
Well, listen, Vincent, the horse is out of the barn. Like this idea that says we need to do it, it's done. It is over. Game over. It's like watching a chess match, right? And then I say to you, it's gonna be mate in 3 moves, and you say, but I gotta do. There's nothing you can do. It's mate in 3 moves, and that's kind of where we are right now. There's nothing that's gonna be done about this. Listen, I'm telling you. Remember Robert Taylor was on the show, and he said it in a succinct way that resonated with me like nothing has in a long time. He said, Eric, and he said to the listeners of the show, all we have to do is study history. Study what America did to the Native American. The black American is going the way of the Native American. That's what's happening. It's over. And so when we had the conversation, and I debated with Farrakhan a few months ago where he said, oh, we're just surviving. I said, we're not surviving. We're just existing. That's all that's happening. And because of our inability and our unwillingness to engage, it's over. I fear it's over.
Well, I see the handwriting on the wall, and I'm about to get my painting recovered. Because I'm not putting up with this. I'm not dealing with this. I'm not living with this. There's no way in the world we should be sitting up here taking this, being led like sheep to a slaughter.
Right, but this is right, but Vincent, what I'm like all of that, right. So what happens today? Nothing. What's going to happen tomorrow? Nothing. Who's mobilizing and organizing? Nobody. So the conversation. What?
I wouldn't say nobody because you got some very passionate and active listeners.
No.
Anybody within the sound of my voice, if you're tired of this crap and you need to make some changes for your child, I need you to start calling your superintendent. I sat up here and watched the town hall meeting in Ronhurst where it's 92% white. And they shouted down the doctors on Facebook Live.
But we understand
they shouted down the doctors and the superintendent and told them there ain't no way
but Vincent,
blank.
But we understand that already. And what I'm saying to you is that ain't going to happen in the black community. It's not. Listen, Vincent, you sat, Diane sat and watched black folks line up like sheeple to get free bottled water when they were told that their elected officials were lying to them and that their water had all kind of carcinogens in it and that their water had lead in it. So when you're now saying, oh, rise up now, people, I'm saying they didn't rise up then. They stood in line and waited patiently.
Eric, you are right, but right now we've got a whole new generation of people rising up. So you're trying to tell me that black lives only matter when you're being choked out by a cop, but your black lives don't matter when they want to put your black lives
that's exactly what I'm right.
They don't.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
They have no clue what they're doing. They're screaming, but they have no agenda. I have been saying it from the beginning. They have no focus because they don't understand that a black man getting choked out has anything to do with all the other generational things that have been happening to us. That's why they can only see that and identify that as the problem. because they don't understand that kids not going back to school is going to create more of that. They don't see it.
It's over. Listen, when Kevin Jenkins was on the show and he would say, just go in the backyard, dig a ditch and jump in it.
And die.
And die. That's it. That is it.
Look, I'm sorry, but I believe that our people consist of people of strength, of character, of moral fiber, and the ability to stand up and speak this truth to power.
Based on what? Based on what?
Well, I'm not going to face the fact that we're a bunch of bitch niggas. No.
Listen.
People dying.
Listen,
to stop.
Vincent. See, so it's one thing to be emotionally charged and say it has to stop, right? They said that about police brutality with Rodney King. It has to stop. And in 2020, a cop put a knee in the neck of George Floyd, right? So it's one thing to sit and go, it has to stop, and I agree with that. But who's gonna stop it?
Look,
You see,
I'll give you another perfect example. DMV, motor vehicles, opened up in New Jersey a couple of days ago, and thousands of people stood outside in line. Thousands of people stood outside in line. And nobody said something is wrong with this. Nobody's fighting the governor. There's a problem with this as to why the employees have been home working, but now you open up and you got thousands of people standing outside. They had no plan in place. They didn't plan this out before they reopened up motor vehicles. You know why? Because people will accept whatever the government is giving them. They are
Listen.
Well, look, I need some people to rise up and stop taking it. We need to stop taking it. We need to start demanding what we want.
But wait a minute, Vincent. But here's the deal, right? Here is the deal, and we're at the 12 o'clock hour. But here's the deal. On one hand, you tell people to stand up, rise up. But on the other hand, you tell them to sit down and vote for a segregationist. You understand what I'm saying to you? So the mixed message says, oh, fight over here, but be docile over here. See, either you're going to fight or you're not.
Well, I'm not looking to give people the mixed message. I'm saying fight the injustice, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
Fight the injustice. All of them.
Hey, guys, listen. We're at 12 o'clock.
They basically just voted Cory Booker back in.
Yes, they did. Of course they did. They didn't fight a damn thing. And they're not going to fight. Listen.
They voted that. Eric, this is what amazes me. Every time I think we hit a new low, every time I think that we can't get worse than this, we get into a higher level of jackassery.
Of course.
I can't.
But listen, history shows it. I'm telling you. Remember we had this discussion, said, well, you know what? We're going to see on election day, right? That's what I said to you. You said, Eric, I believe. And I said, not. I said, well, let's wait and see. And now here we are again. Here we are again. Dig a ditch. Dig a ditch. Listen, thanks for tuning in, guys. Jody, keep fighting for your babies. Those of you who understand the tsunami is coming, prepare yourself. Batten down the hatches. Because for the rest of those folks, they are just going to die.
Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Rise up, people.